Topsham Planning Board to order. Could you please take the roll?
Don Span.
Present.
Ronald Bisson. Gary Bickford.
Present.
Larry Bland.
Present.
Tim Dunham.
Present.
Scott Libby.
Present.
Andrew Munsey.
Present.
All present except Warren Bisson.
Thank you. So we have April 24th, 2025. I guess I can entertain a motion, whatever. I will not vote on this one since I wasn't here for the meeting, but
I move that we adopt the minutes of the April 24, 2025 second draft as submitted.
Second.
is there any discussion? All in favor? I abstain. Good, thank you. All right. We have a public hearing, blasting permit for Highland Green. North, I guess that's North Phase 4 Home Corp. Estimated a blasting permit for removal of 3,000 cubic yards at 319 Evergreen Circle for residential construction, tax map R04, lot 17A-10. Before we get started, John Wozleski is a client of mine, mainly on the commercial side. I don't have much to do with this, but I'm glad to recuse myself or not, depending on how this board feels. All right.
I don't think it's necessary.
Okay. All right. So do we have someone presenting that?
Do we have someone here to present for the blasting permit for Highland Green?
Yes. Okay. Please come up to the microphone, sir, and state your name and address.
Yep, I'm Tim Charrington, owner of Drone and Blasting Specialist. Live in Garden, Maine.
Okay, did you get his name?
Spell the last name.
Purington.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. So could you give us a brief description of what you're looking to do?
There's an outcrop of ledge where they gotta move on and put roadways, utilities, and some foundations.
Did you have anything else? All right.
It's kind of an extension on what we did last time.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have any questions? All right. I'm just going to open up to the public for the public hearing. Any comments, questions, concerns from anybody in the public in regards to this? Necessarily, we don't have anybody. All right, once again, any comments, questions before I close the public hearing? All right, seeing none, it's closed. Any further questions from the board?
I think it looked like you guys are well within the time zone as far as 8 to 4 rather than 7 to 7 for blasting. And you've got what, 3 sensors you're gonna have set up for?
Usually have 2, but we can put 3.
Yeah, I think the code is 3.
Is it?
Yeah, pretty sure. So you have those, and those are within the 250 feet. So we need to
Excuse me.
250 feet from the blast zone.
Yes.
And you said the memo says phase 4. Is this phase 4C that we'll be talking about later? So
This is the same. This is the same. Do you know if this is phase 4C of Highland Green?
I believe so.
So it's part of the quarry.
part of the board.
Yes.
I think you looked at quarry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. And you guys reviewed the application. There's no.
Staff have reviewed the application and there's no outstanding concerns.
Okay, nothing from any staff.
Tom Lister, no.
Okay, all right, good. Then I guess I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the blasting permit application for Highland Green tax map R04 lot 17A-10, having met the applicable standards of the blasting ordinance chapter 85, be approved with staff recommended conditions and findings identified in the staff memo dated May 8th, 2025.
I'll second that motion.
All right, thank you.
Who seconded
Larry,
it?
me.
Larry, thank you, Larry.
All right, any further discussion from the board? Seeing none, all in favor? It's unanimous, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Okay, so we have a sketch plan. CP Rogers LLC is proposing to renovate the existing building on 61 Main Street, located in the Middle Village District, adding a parking lot to accommodate the commercial business specializing in wellness and skincare services, tax map U04 lot 22. Again, before we start that, this is closed, correct?
Yes.
You closed on the property and you own the property?
Yes, yes.
All right, I just didn't want to misstate something. So one of my brokers, one of the contractors, had the listing on this property. So again, I just full disclosure, if anyone thinks I need to recuse on this one, I'm glad to.
No, I think you're fine.
All right,
It's already closed.
okay. So please, whoever's going to speak.
I'm Kara Rogers of CP Rogers, and we purchased the building that is currently 2 units, both residential, and are with 2 separate entrances. It does have a large parking lot in the front, but we actually, what got us here is that we started extending it out back already, and then we were introduced to this process. It is a smaller project, 4,800 square feet of increasing space, which I think we made more clear on our updated map. I don't think you guys have that, but
Can you
after
pull that
the
up?
staff review.
Let's see if he can pull it up.
Yeah, he doesn't have the updated one.
Yeah, not the updated one.
Well, actually, I did email it to you this
You might the
morning.
updated one, so technically we can't look at the updated one until because it was after.
We had the staff review on the 22nd and we submitted this on the 10th, I think. So after that, we updated it even more just based on the requests that they had made at that meeting. Just marking out the parking spots because they wanted to know where those were, where they would be. So we did all of that information, or collected all that information. We actually had to hire a second civil engineer because it was kind of out of our first one scope for the project, but
So
yeah,
who
we've
do
kind
you
of,
have doing that?
we've done, this name's Steve Roberge. And we do, I think there's a number of different questions. I don't know if you guys have access to that list that they provided us on the 22nd.
Well, I printed out the memo from staff.
Yes, and it
It
should have
has
the
some
staff
background
comments.
and then it has staff comments. There's quite a list from the planning department, which I assume you've seen.
Yes, and we've addressed it all
Okay.
at this point, but I'm not sure that I'm allowed to talk about it today.
No, you can. You can talk about any of the changes
Okay.
we've made. It just has to do with like what we showed the planning board has to do what was included on the memo, and so
Okay.
but
So I
you can-
guess.
you can talk about
So
anything.
why can't, I guess I'm missing the point.
So
I understand all the timeframes, right? But to the extent that we have something that might be,
more up to date
well,
Much more up to date.
at least
Yes.
help us make more informed decisions.
about the
I mean, is
I-
there?
I can. It's
What
just
do you guys think?
basically it's not what had been submitted. But we
Well, you can
if
show us
guys
what
would
was
like to-
submitted, but if there's an update, I think we've done that with
I think we're sketch.
Did she describe it?
with Chris a few
No,
times.
I've actually brought a copy of the updated map. I mean, we, just because again, this is all very intense. So I have to refer back to the notes from the engineer. But that was the initial engineer's work. And then based on the feedback we received from the staff review, we hired somebody else.
Do you want to just pass it?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, it just it showed where the parking is here and then, maybe a turnaround there. That has not been done yet. I only brought one, so I think.
That's okay.
And a little bit of, that's not there already?
Oh, that
Oh,
is
that's
there.
new, okay, but okay.
So the existing driveway is paved, but in order to accommodate those handicap parking spots, we would have to
Those are the ones in the front.
Yeah, yeah. And based on what Tom, Codes had told us, we need 1 for residential and 3 for the business technically, but we are proposing 9 spots just so that, and a back, turnaround area so that nobody has to get clogged up there. We've also been in close communication with the owner of Dairy Queen. And as soon as we get there's a survey done, but as soon as we get it marked out, we'll put up a fence in between the two just so that there's no confusion. That was per his request. So we would split that.
So is there any requirement, I guess I'm asking you, any requirement for fencing or any kind of screening?
So the fence, the screening was, it was a request by both the police chief, or mainly the police chief.
He asked about it.
Yep, it had to do with, just to avoid any conflict between, just because these 2 properties are so close side by side, something that would differentiate which pavement is on whose property side.
And that really is, like, there's a big grassy area between where our parking lot would actually be. The only confusion is at the very front where the pavement merges together. So I'm not even sure if fence could be placed on that area, to be honest. I'd be happy to put up something. I just don't know what that would look like. And again, we have a good relationship. We've been communicating back and forth about it. So.
I think it's good to see the fence there. That's gonna be one of my questions, because, the kids are gonna be back there running around with their ice creams and they go all over the place. So,
absolutely.
you don't want them in your parking
Mhm.
lot. And, the shared, it's more of just a shared parking lot almost at the entrance part.
Yes.
I think it would behoove you guys if you can figure out a way to extend the fence closer to the sidewalk.
Okay.
We even, I don't know what the scale is there as far as the amount of pavement you have left at the end of the fence, but existing and how it has been over the years, it's tough to guess which driveway people are going to come out of Dairy Queen. And
We've noticed that.
Yeah. And you don't want them going out of your driveway.
Okay.
So
I'm
as
sure
much as you
fencing
can focus
company-
on that safety issue.
They would know how to do that. Is that something that's possible through pavement?
Yeah, I think they would be able to
Okay.
just drill through the pavement
Okay.
and put the fence post through.
Or
Yep.
maybe, and I don't know, but I've seen it in cities, is like some kind of a planter with like a tree.
Okay, yeah.
Wouldn't that look nice?
So,
And you wouldn't have
It might
to.
be
I think
easier
that's
for you
on
to-
the site plan, actually. I think the engineer did
He
put
put something there
planter.
for the landscaper. We
So,
had to also hire a landscape designer.
But
So-
that would,
Yeah.
instead of having
Okay.
that fence have to go into the
Yeah.
pavement and all that.
so I think you have residential
You
neighbors
could definitely
behind you,
do this.
Yes, there's.
and your parking spots are pointing towards the back.
Yep.
Was there any discussion about needing to put some screening there?
No, we're typically open only during the day, so there's not a lot of, except maybe in the winter, it might.
That's actually what I was thinking about.
Yeah, the winter would just be,
They do have a fence though, I believe.
there is a fence,
Like-
yeah.
The owners.
But I'm open to suggestions
The
about
plan
what would,
shows a stockade fence at the back.
It looks like it's on the other side. Maybe not.
it's on there is a fence all along the back.
Okay.
But again, I'm open to other, improvements needed to block that. But the majority of patients will be able to park in the front. There's, just with how we're appointment only. So the majority of the parking in the back would just be for staff or overflow if someone popped in or something like that. But for the most part, I foresee patients parking where the existing garage is.
So you didn't see anything in the staff comments that you felt you couldn't support?
No, I think it was more just clarifying for them. I think a big question that Sky spoke of today as to why she couldn't approve it herself was that of a lighting plan. We don't plan on changing any lighting, so I'm not sure if I would need a waiver for that. There's a light at each entrance. And just to kind of keep it with the existing appearance of the building, we would like to keep it the same, but if you requested us to add more lighting, then we could definitely do that, and our contractor's open to adding whatever we need. The
Well, I
park-
think, not that I'm a lighting expert, but part of the lighting plan is to provide, again, pedestrian safety, which is kind of what these guys were talking about. So,
Yeah.
that might be something that we probably shouldn't necessarily waiver, right?
To add more
I'm
lighting,
just-
like a.
What do you think?
Well, it might not be adding. It might just be
might
the
not.
plan that
Yeah,
states that it's adequate for the safety reasons.
That's kind of what our engineer had said, is because there is a back door there with a light, and then there's a light, in front of where the apartment entrance is, and then the front entrance where the patients would enter. So there are three existing lights. Again, I don't really know where else.
So the lighting plan just has to be included as part of the site plan, but all you would have to do is just show that, if you can show that the existing light meets the ordinance already, then the lighting plan would just need to show that. That's so.
What is it specifically? Would we be needing to show that it's safe?
No, you just have to show that so a lighting plan, and sometimes you might have to reach out to a lighting company to pull together the lighting plan for you, but you just have to show that there's certain light that's not going over into like residential properties. A lighting plan typically shows, there are like lots of little numbers on it, and it shows where the light is moving to, and the ordinance has specific areas, it has specific conditions on how much light can go into like neighboring properties.
So if it stays the same, then where are we at with that? What should we do from there? If our proposal would be to leave the lighting the same, what would we do from there?
So you'd still have to ask for a lighting plan, like you'd still have to provide us a lighting plan showing that here where the existing lights are, and then.
Which they're on, the existing lights are noted on there.
So let me help, and I may not help, all right? Basically, you're allowed so many foot candles, crossing into different lots and so forth, depending on what type of lot it is.
Okay.
But so, and basically at the boundaries, right? But then there's so much required for just people going and walking through a parking lot, right?
Yeah.
So, which is the pedestrian safety portion of it.
Yeah.
Right? So, basically, I think to develop that, you at least need to get someone to go out there and measure what you have with your existing conditions.
Okay.
Identify where those lights are and what the existing conditions at the boundaries and within those lights, to
What
just
that
make sure that
lighting
they
reaches.
satisfy the ordinance requirements.
Okay.
I think it's called a photometric plan, is it not?
Yeah.
That's it.
And who would she contact for something like that?
Oh, the lighting
I
engineer.
don't know, people bring that here, I don't think.
A separate engineer from the one that we're working with.
Yeah, it would be a lighting engineer.
But your guy might know who to tell you.
I mean, he suggested this plan
Okay.
as is, and said to bring it up to you guys as potentially needing a waiver for it. Again, I'm not familiar with the process, but
My concern with doing is I'm not sure we can say that we can grant the waiver.
without knowing that the lighting we have is sufficient.
At least would appear to
Okay,
be.
so I need
adequate,
someone
right?
to tell the planning board that the lighting we have is sufficient for our project. And that would have to come from a lighting expert.
Just because you were residential before?
Yep.
And now you're gonna be a
Okay.
business,
Okay,
so that's the
Yeah.
biggest concern.
Because the other part of it too is that if the existing light that's there is a 1,000,000 candle power floodlight,
okay,
that because now you're changing the use.
Yeah.
We probably can't waive out that 1,000,000 power candle light.
okay. So then the other
situation.
option would be to add additional lighting.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, if it glows, way up into the sky,
Right,
then that's in violation of the code also.
right.
So it has to be enough, bigger than a red box, smaller than a house type idea.
Right, okay.
So, but like you say, your engineer probably knows somebody who
Yeah,
can
I think
figure that out.
we're sort of speculating, right? That's why really if you can get someone to at least take the measurements and
Okay,
lay it out, compare it to what the code says is at the boundaries and so forth, what it needs to be, then
for a commercial and residential
Well,
space.
where you basically, because you're in a quasi-commercial area, right?
Right,
On
yeah,
Main
it's
Street,
mixed, mixed
right?
use.
But you do have residential right behind you,
Yeah,
I believe, it's a different zone, yeah.
So but basically you would just explain to the lighting engineer, you'd say, I'm doing I need to provide a photometric plan for the town of Topsham. That follows their ordinance, and then you provide the site plan to them, and then they would be able to take whatever measurements, they would compare the measurements with what's in the ordinance, and then basically they can say, okay, this meets the ordinance or does not meet the ordinance, and they could provide.
and what exactly is the ordinance?
Oh, sorry, the ordinance is the town code.
Right, but what is it?
Do you have the section?
The actual section?
Yeah,
So, and
Sure.
I think your guy should know somebody that does that, but if he doesn't, then you can call them or call somebody like the Sightlines or,
yeah, I've already been in touch with
Fiscal
them,
or-
because their sightlines would know.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it's section 175-9.
Okay.
And it has like multiple,
I think that's what's confusing about it, it's like, it's talking about like gas stations and places like that, and I'm like, I don't know where I fit into that.
right, so 175-9 is just, it's very general. It has for site plan approval.
Right, I think that's what I'm having a hard time with.
I was on the computer. Down into it, read.
Yeah, generally the, and I mean, that's another reason that a lighting engineer would be able to help with that. Like they'd be able to look at the lighting standards and compare it to which zone you're in and which standards your lot has to meet.
Okay,
I think what they would do is take a look at what lights you have, because those are manufactured by somebody who probably publishes the foot candle output of those lights.
yeah,
And they can say, all right, this light has, 6,000 lumens over here. And then they can figure out how many foot candles there are 20 feet away, 30 feet away. So they might be able to gather data from your existing light fixtures and find out if those are adequate. And if they're not, they'll tell you.
okay. Thank you.
other comments? And certainly feel free to call staff,
Yes.
whether it's Josh or Sky or Tom.
Yeah,
Lister.
I've been in touch with them a little bit.
All right, any other questions for us?
No, I think that was the only thing unless there was things that.
No.
Okay.
Okay,
This part of the process is just so that you can ask the planning board questions, and the planning board can ask you questions, and that's really all the
yeah,
discussion.
we will see you again.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Good luck.
Very exciting. Yeah.
Okay, so, won't say once again, this is, it happens to be Highland Green, but there's actually I'll call it a bigger issue here. The discussion topic is, shall a public hearing be held for Highland Green Phase 4C subdivision amendment, right? And I probably will choose not to vote on that if you guys decide to do a vote, right? However, I've asked Josh a couple things, and also Sky. If you look at, I guess, the underlying situation, what I asked him was, I said, tell us what the code is, right? And the code says that, we have a certain process that we have to go by. And we don't necessarily have to have a public hearing, but we choose to whether or not we're going to do a public hearing. Then my next question was, what's our past practice? We've always done public hearings. So then my first thought is, and now we're going to set a precedent, right? Whether it's Highland Green or somebody else. However, then the next question is, why are we doing this? The reason that this is happening, and it just happened to be Highland Green, but the reason this is happening is because of what our code requires as far as posting is getting more and more difficult with papers like our local paper, the Times Record, that now is only being, I think, delivered
once
once a week
now.
and doesn't have a full paper, even electronically every day, like it used to, right? So my next question was, okay, then maybe we should be looking at our code, right? Because I'd rather do that than establish a precedent, right? So the answer to that is, this is state code, right?
It's
So,
state code.
so state code is what's at least driving this right now. So that as a preamble, that's what I found with my questions. But I think, Scott, I think I'll let you take this forward because he did put here a potential motion. And since John is a client of mine, I think that makes sense. But I think this is more encompassing, not just the site, the subdivision amendment at the Island Green. I also think that there's a valid reason for doing public hearings on something like this. So I'm not sure that it's necessarily, you may want to think about language that says if we did do this, this is not precedent settings, and more importantly, how do we get the state code corrected to accommodate the new whatever.
Does that have to be done through the legislature? Or?
Yep.
But I think maybe what we do is ask these guys to get a hold of MMA and ask MMA to, push something like that. Because we can't be the only people running into this.
Absolutely.
Well,
And you're talking about the notice requirements and how to,
Well, the noticing isn't so much, it's specifically having to have it in a published paper.
yeah, no, those are becoming obsolete. So they'd have to come up with new ideas on how to.
Also talks in terms of local circulation.
And local circulation. Yep.
So the question is, is a daily paper, let's say out of Portland, a paper of local circulation?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some people would say, yes, it is.
Mhm.
That the Portland Press Herald is locally circulated.
Yeah. But I don't think, is the Portland Press Herald still going out every day?
It is.
Yes.
It is, okay.
I'm not sure on Monday.
But
Really.
anyway, so Scott, why don't you take this
All right.
discussion?
So MMA.
So, I mean, the other item, I mean, we're talking about obviously, it's gonna take a lot longer to get Augusta to change something.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, the developers know this.
Yes.
Okay.
So, well, actually,
So maybe it comes out weekly.
so they just changed it.
Okay,
And so that actually explains, so the impetus that was behind this was simply because typically the way that staff had done it is following the staff review of the project, right? Then we get an idea after staff review it, whether or not it's gonna make its way to the planning board. We say, yes, after the staff meeting, it's gonna make it to the planning board. Usually we have about over a week and a half to get it to the Times Record, because there were we have to do it twice, and the Times Record had historically done two per week. And so very, very recently, they just got purchased by another entity, and now they only do it once per week. And this happened exactly at the same time that this was coming in, and we just had the staff meeting this past Tuesday. And so while normally it wouldn't have been a problem, and we would have got it into the paper, in this very specific instance, because of the transitioning period, it's basically too late to get into the paper. And so basically, I mean, either way, it works no problem. If the planning board were to decide, let's just stick with precedent, and the subdivision gets pushed, that works. There's no reason that we can't do that. Otherwise, if we decide it's an amendment, and this is a temporary blip as it gets figured out, then we could hear it on the same date. So that's kind of where staff was thinking. Originally, the idea was that they were to be scheduled for the next planning board meeting, but because of that, we'd have to push it back, which again, can be done.
And how much, what did Chris or the applicant have to say with being pushed to June?
Oh, so we haven't, staff hasn't brought it up.
Okay.
It depends on what.
Expected Maine on that.
Yeah, and it may
But-
not, yeah,
The only other thing I want to bring up that may matter, at least to me, when things from Highland Green come before us, is one of the few times we tend to have folks from the public that come and want to say something. So it seems like a difficult one to maybe say, oh yeah, let's put away from it this time.
My thought is that, yes, we do sometimes have minor amendments to site plans that come before us without, too much fanfare. I think this is more than, not to use the same thing twice in one meeting, but, it's bigger than a bread box, smaller than a house type situation. So I'm not in favor of not having it go without a public hearing. The other thought that I had is, has any inquiry been made to town council for a legal opinion as to whether or not publication in the Portland paper would satisfy the statute? Because if he would have to be the one to defend it, to say, oh, there wasn't sufficient published notice. So I think a legal opinion in that regard might be solid for us anyway.
Do the residents get a letter anyway, because at least the ones that are close to where this is happening?
yes, they would get the postcard. However,
You get a postcard.
yes, the town would send out postcards to all of the abutters. However, because of the way that the ordinance is written, it's written like in an all or nothing. So it's like, the planning board may decide whether or not it wants to do a public hearing. But if they do a public hearing, it shall be done in this specific way, which is determined by the state code.
Yeah.
So it's like we could still put out the notices, the postcard notices, but it couldn't be a public hearing.
But I agree that I'm not sure it's smaller than a house, it's 9 houses. So.
Yes. Thank you, Scott.
Expect that, and it's infill, which means that there are other houses that are going to be close to these houses. So expect there's going to be folks that are going to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, do we need to,
I would say,
we don't need to make a motion?
nope, no motion needs to be made. Basically, we would just stick with what has been established, and so we will just push to the next one.
That's a good decision, because I hate setting precedent.
Yeah, no, I think, I feel that way.
So, but we do have a couple things. I like your idea about at least asking,
Mhm.
in the interim, while the state gets things changed.
Yeah.
If there is something I think that we could ask the state to do.
Takes a while to get things moving.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe some mini criers could be set up.
I'd start now. I mean, I don't know who you guys.
So our agenda's done, right?
Are you talking about the old fashioned type or
No,
town
the
crier?
crier.
A town crier going around?
Right.
These guys
On
don't,
horseback.
right? I guess not. Keep going.
I'll motion to adjourn.
So, second.
All in favor? All opposed?